Hey guys, welcome back to Midweek Online. Thank you so much for joining us, whether this is the first time you're with us or you watch every week. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you wanting to spend your time with God with us. If you've never met me before, my name is Zach. I'm an intern/college student here at Lifepointe Church. If you know me, you're one of our regular students, but if not, that's okay too. I'm still glad you're here, and I hope you stick around. Pastor Josh has a really great message for you guys. He's going to be talking about the importance of hard work. Now, we all know how scary hard work can be, but we really want you guys to understand why God created us to work and how we fill the role and purpose that God has for us when we do it. So without further ado, the message.
When I was a kid, I hated the idea of work. I just did not want anything to do with it. I was all about fun. I was all about doing things that were fun. I didn't want to waste my time with manual labor. And my grandfather, he actually owned a piece of land, and he loved farming. He loves farming. He loves being able to go and work with his hands. And so he did this all the time. And there would be times that he would take us along. But I remember there was one interaction that we had where Pop was inviting me to go out to the farm to go help him with some of the things that he was planting. And I just looked at him, and in my 7 or 8 year old wisdom, I said, you know what, Pop, I'm not gonna go because I'm not that kind of kid. I'm not that kind of kid. I don't want to work. I'm not that kind of kid. You're looking for the wrong person. I think that's a mentality that sometimes we can carry and hold on to even when it is time for us to work. Obviously, I've developed a work ethic. I've been able to enjoy what I do, and I love that. But it wasn't always that way, and sometimes we can kind of get twisted into thinking that all work is bad, all work is manipulative. It's all something that we should look to not do for as long as we can do it. And that's really not the case, and that's not what we're about. That's not what we were created for. We were actually created for work. I want to go to Genesis, and we're going to read a couple of passages throughout the first few chapters of Genesis that are so important for laying the foundation of work. And that was what the book of Genesis actually did from the jump. It was creating and showing us the first human interactions. It was showing us God's covenant for the first time with the people of Israel. It was all about foundations and beginnings. And so I want to read in chapter 1, verse 1, right? This is something that if you have paid any attention to Bible at all, you will know this passage. It says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God created the heavens and the earth. I think that it is so important to see work as actually a creation of God. He created everything. You see, when it says that He created the heavens and the earth, He also created the things that populate those areas as well. Throughout the rest of Genesis 1, if you know it, you know that this is the creation story. Not only did He speak earth and speak the heavens into existence, but He actually began to fill it with things like light and land and sea and animals and plants, and He began to populate heaven, and he just began to speak all of these things out. You see, the concept of work was something that was modeled by God in Genesis 1. When you read the entirety of the chapter, you can see that God was at work. He was at work for 6 days, and on the seventh, He rested. This isn't the same way that we work, right? We can't speak things out of existence and into existence like He can. But it does create a model for how we're supposed to work in our lives. As a matter of fact, the people of Israel used this model here in Genesis for how they developed their work schedules and how they developed their work weeks and their days of rest. You see, God created humanity in His own image, and we're to reflect Him in every single thing that we do. If we're going to live out the kingdom, then work is no exception. Work is not an exception to this. If we hold the creation and the model of work that God placed and we go, wow, it's amazing. How many people have ever looked out and you see just amazing mountains or a beautiful ocean? You go, man, God is so good in His creation. Well, if you can't see work in that same way, you really need to have a shift in your perspective, because we are supposed to view work and rest in the same way as this beautiful creation by God. It can shift the way that we see work and just begin to move. I mean, what would it look like for us to be able to see work as worship? to be able to see our work as reflecting and pointing to God. I think that that would be amazing in a culture and in a society that so values hard work and dedication and people who actually love what they do and see a purpose and a value. I mean, if we could start to see work as worship, I think that that would change so much. But work is a creation of God, and we really do need to treat it that way. If you read down in chapter 1, verses 26 through 28, this is what it says. It says, God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, this is important, be fruitful and increase in numbers, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Work was a creation of God, and we have to start to see that as a beautiful creation, just like we see nature and we see even our lives as this amazing testament to God's own voice speaking these things into existence. But the other thing that we have to understand as we lay a foundation of work in Genesis is that work is actually a concern of God. Now, he's not concerned in the way that we think, oh man, he's so concerned and worried about this. He's not. But he is concerned with how we as humans treat the planet, how we begin to work to do the things that he has commanded us to do even in Genesis as humanity. You see, work is a concern of God. He was concerned about the state of his creation, and after he was satisfied with it, and he wanted humanity to actually be the rulers over this. And we have the unique privilege of being made in God's own image. Nobody else, no one, no other species has that privilege to be made in God's own image. You see, God wanted to leave the earth to a creation that could be entrusted with it. This is why we're commanded to be fruitful and multiply. This is why it's so massive to believers. It's not just your parents or your friends trying to be weird. It's a very clear and demanding call on our lives as humans to be able to do this. You see, family and raising children, this is actually the most important thing to God in this. This is why it's a command here in Genesis chapter 1. You see, he commanded us and he gives us and equips us with the tools that we need to be able to work effectively. You see, he wanted us to be able to honor him through the way that we work on earth. He even gives Adam and Eve authority over everything to be able to even dictate the future. We all know how that turns out. We're going to read about it here in a little bit. And so God really gave the tools for us to be able to work and to work effectively. It was a concern to him to be able to leave earth, his creation, to us as believers, as Christians, as people who were created in his image. You know, I think of a time, and maybe you could be thinking about this too, but have you ever been given something that belongs to somebody else and you have to watch over it? Maybe you've house sat before, maybe you've dog sat before, maybe you have babysat, you know, anything like this. When you're watching over something, when you are trusted with something, there becomes a weight to it. I think of a time just last year even that I was entrusted with something and it scared the living daylights out of me. Like seriously, we had a student who was giving an art piece to Fine Arts. Now, the way that this happens is you actually send it over to the network office earlier than just showing up. So they gave it to me and entrusted it with me in the car to drive down to Phoenix to be able to do this. Now, I have this art piece that if anything happens to it, it's not going to be on me. It's on the judges and the evaluators as they evaluated this thing. That freaked me out Fast forward a couple more months, I had to actually fly with it to Florida for nationals. It was wild, and I felt like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this right. And I was so scared about that, but it is important that we take that and we see work as a concern of God, and we begin to move with that and move with that caution and that awareness in our life. I think if we can shift our brains to see this, I think that it would be huge for us. We get into this last bit in Genesis chapter 3, and in verses 17 through 19, this is what it says. It says, to Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife and you ate the fruit from the tree which I commanded you, right? Because they totally went away from God and ate out of the tree of knowledge. And this is what he says. This is the punishment that comes about that. He says, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life, but it will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. The last thing as we build the foundation for work is that work was actually corrupted without God. Work was corrupted when we removed God from work. Work was a worshipful thing. Actually, the Hebrew word there actually means to worship in work. But without God, it becomes cursed. It becomes something that's corrupted. This is why we don't want to work. Hello. This is why we don't want to do the things that sometimes we are asked to do, because the fall separated Adam and Eve from God, and it caused issues for humanity on earth forever. And the actions of separating themselves from God, there had to be repercussions. Work was one of the things that was affected in the fall. It means that they had to be reliant on God. They couldn't just do whatever they wanted to do without any sort of repercussions. They actually had to be reliant on God to provide for them. That's what God was wanting to do through some of these things that he commands and kind of cursed. Work wasn't a curse, but the effects and the way that we work was. Humanity's first calling was to be the caretakers of the earth, but we began to cause issues. Humanity began to cause issues in this, and there was something that had to be taken. We continued to mess it up. So the curse was not on human activity, but on the ground. It wasn't on work, but it was on the way that we work. It was the toilsomeness of work that was going to be affected. It wasn't that pregnancy or labor. That's what God actually cursed for Eve, was that there would be painful childbirth. So that's who you have the blame on that, ladies. But it wasn't that pregnancy was a curse. It was that it was going to be harder to give birth. This was some of the things that happened. And so when we don't have a framework, a relationship with the Lord, right? Because Adam and Eve stepped away and stepped outside of that relationship. If we don't have that, then we're going to see work as something to hate, something that we can get out of, something that we don't have to do, something that we can push back until we absolutely have to. But it was never supposed to be this way. It was not supposed to be this way. It was actually supposed to be worship to God. So it can be so easy to write off work as something to dread, to go to actually be a part of the workforce, to actually do things. Maybe some of you guys are in school right now and you already hate that. You know, that can be a thing for sure. It can be so easy to write that off. But it takes a shift in our minds as Christ image bearers, as Christians, as believers, to understand that our work and our work ethic can actually glorify God with an authenticity that not many other methods of reaching people can do. There's only so many words that you can say. There's only so many things that you can do. But man, if you have a great work ethic, if you treat your bosses, you treat your other coworkers with respect, if you treat your teachers and your classmates with respect, people begin to notice that. And I think that if we could do this, man, it would begin to change the world around us. I think that if we could see work as something, man, I'm going to worship God with this, I think that we would begin to see how effective it is. Guys, work was not a curse. Work is not a curse. Work is not a bad thing. Don't try to get out of it. Don't try to run from it. Lean into it and actually use it to begin to reach people and to show the love of Christ through that. I think that if we can build off of this foundation of work and we can begin to shift our minds and shift the way that we see it, I think that it would be a huge game changer in our lives.
Welcome back, guys. I hope you enjoyed the message. I don't know about you, but I felt really empowered by what Josh was saying. Just knowing that God has a perfect plan for us and knowing that He made us perfect in His image, male and female, it's such a ticket to just treat hard work just like it's worship. So yeah, thank you, Josh. Make sure that if you guys liked the video, you want to see more videos like this, or you want to get a notification every time we post a new video, then hit that corresponding button. You know what they are. If you guys want to message us on social media, please don't be afraid to do so. If you have thoughts, questions, or concerns, you can reach us on Instagram, Facebook, and on our website. Don't be afraid to reach out. We love you guys. We love hearing from you guys, and we can't wait to see you next week. Take care.